And it looks like we're live. How's it going, everybody? It's your boy Wardy, and as you can see, we're back at it talking about the Amazons. And more than anything, I'm hyped up to get into this one. I'm truly juiced up. And if you're wondering why, Wardy, why is that? It's the start of the MLB offseason, baby. We're officially underway. It's our first live show of the MLB offseason, and we're going to be coming at you with live shows every single week from now all the way up until spring training basically starts. We're even going to have weeks where we do multiple live shows a week daily. You know, the free agent frenzy live shows, they get crazy. All the rumors, all the reports, everything regarding the New York Metropolitans this offseason, we'll be covering to an absolute T. A lot is coming. Really excited for it, but really pumped up to get into tonight's discussion, as this is our first of probably a couple segments of Mets manager search, manager watch, however you want to call about it, as the Mets are destined, looking like they're going to be making their new hire for manager as soon as next week, according to reports from SNY. So a lot to get into on who are the Mets going to hire. What is the latest on Craig Counsell? Is there Craig Counsell controversy? We'll dabble into all the latest on Counsell's front. The other report candidates, Carlos Mendoza, Andy Green, Mark Kotze, to name a few, along with other potential names that we've heard in the rumblings. What are we feeling as Mets fans right now? Who do we want to see as manager? When can we see someone chosen, and for what reasons? That is what we're about to get into. But more than anything, happy to have you all in here. How's it going, all you beautiful people? To my 100 live viewers, I got my man Unhinged Patrick. Pat, not only a great member, good friend of mine, but we got some things cooking, so stay tuned. Warden has arrived. No, you have arrived. Jacob, my man, who's done great editing in the past. How are you? Happy to have you in here. Alan, Robert, Edwin, going down the list. Brandall, Robert, Dominic, great member. My man, so happy to see you. Long time no see. Good friend of mine. Let's see, elevators, all you guys. Thank you. Also, shout out Alan again with the birthday. And guys, look, we're taking it old school. I'm so pumped up to get into tonight's show. We're even repping the old school, the Wardy denim jacket, the Mets denim jacket. If you're an OG, you know. If you know, you know. This used to be the exact fit I wore with the Mets black hat every single video, every single stream, no matter if it was sunny, raining, it was cold or freezing. Cold, freezing, hot. It didn't matter. I was always wearing it. I got tired of it. I wasn't wearing this during the summer anymore. I couldn't do it, but now I'm going to wear it every once in a while, so hopefully you like that too. Fletch, great member. How you doing? Daniel, happy to have you guys in here. But yes, tonight's discussion is going to be headlined by Craig Counsell. What is the latest on him? You've been seeing a lot of reports from SNY, among others. How much should we take into stock with this? How much should we say, okay, is there much to worry about here? How should we feel as fans, not only regarding that, but also Carlos Mendoza, who looks like a name that actually has substance here to potentially be Mets' next manager, should the Mets not land what is easily their number one target, and the number one target for a couple clubs, that being in Craig Counsell. He is the hottest commodity among managers available in this year's free agency. He is the Shohei Ohtani of managers in this year's free agency. I think that's a great way to put it. There is no other person that has the qualifications that Counsell has, that has the previous MLB experience as a player that he has, and the automatic impact and success that he would have with any club that he arrives versus other managerial candidates currently out there, because most of them would be first-time managers, either guys that are currently in a bench role or aren't even in any role with the baseball club. Let's take Mark DeRosa, for example, because I've heard a lot of Mets fans bring up his name. So when you look at all the options out there, there's a reason why Craig Counsell is kind of stuck out like a sore thumb as the best available option. And of course, the Mets having this guy by the name of David Stearns, their new president of baseball operations, that was leading the charge with Counsell as his manager for his entire tenure in Milwaukee. That tends to amplify things a little bit, at least looking in the Mets' favor. But how in the Mets' favor are they actually? Are things a little bit different than we initially assumed? Again, we're going to get into all that right now, but more than anything, really happy to just get back in the groove of things, and happy to be doing a live show with you guys. I missed you guys. We haven't done a live show in a month. I don't think we've done it since the David Stearns news happened, and we kind of rehashed that hire, what it means. So really happy to get back in the flow of doing consistent live shows for you, but I don't want to dilly-dally anymore. I really just want to deep dive into this thing and get into all of tonight's topics regarding Counsell, regarding other candidates, and of course, if there are any other live updates that we find out throughout the show. As a live viewer you may be, please make sure to let us know in the live chat. That way I can go on Twitter and check for myself, and we react together as a community. And of course, if you haven't already, make sure to smash a like and subscribe button if you enjoy consistent Mets coverage. There's a reason why we are the number one Mets platform on YouTube, not directly affiliated with the Mets or SNY, since starting the channel back in December of 2020. In fact, that is thanks to all you amazing and loyal viewers out there. You have grown this community into something so special, and there is not a day where I don't wake up truly humbled and grateful to be in the position that I am, as just a schmuck who loves to talk his Mets and thankfully has a lot of other fans that feel that they can relate with me and we can really have great discussions, even if there's disagreements. I love the interaction. I just love getting to interact with this amazing Mets community. But now let's talk about Craig Counsell. Okay, we've talked about this guy for the past couple months now. Ever since really the David Stearns connection started, people started to associate not only Stearns but also Counsell with the Mets for the main reasoning both these guys have expiring contracts, same time, same year, and both guys that could be fitting for the Mets should they need the type of turmoil that we've seen in their front office and now in their managerial front as they parted with Buck Showalter. So now that we see the case David Stearns leading the charge President Baseball Operations, there is no GM belly up with that investigation having go on, and because someone ratted on him for illegally using the IL, which every single team does. So I don't know why Manfred had the audacity to say that we haven't seen this with other teams. That's a complete lie, but there's a thorough investigation being done, and something tells me that Buck Showalter ratted on Billy too because of the stuff that came out prior, how they had disagreements on playing Vogelback. Playing Vogie was Epler, and not wanting to play him was Buck. Of course, Epler trying to save some face with that horrendous trade in hindsight for Holderman, and then looking forward, Buck wanting to do his best to utilize his roster, and Billy kind of, not letting him do exactly what he wants. So that's over. That's done with. Both those guys are no longer in the Mets organization. So it's David Stearns' time at the helm to lead the way. And this is where Craig Counsell comes into play because of that multi-year experience that he had during their time in Milwaukee together, in which they had plenty of success. I mean, themselves together, both David Stearns and Craig Counsell doubled the amount of playoff experiences that Brewers had in their organization's history in just that 4 or 5 year span with each other. So very impressive with a lot of things that they did on unlimited payroll, no less, from Stearns, and really seeking out talent, making proper trades. Of course, the big one, what really kickstarted everything with the Brewers and their playoff runs over the past number of years was that big trade with the Marlins to land Christian Yelich and him becoming the MVP caliber player he did, and having a nice bounce back year for the Brewers this past year too. So happy for Yelich, along with all the great pitching acquisitions that he's done in recent years, and Counsell's fantastic job on really being a leader in that clubhouse, that room. I mean, this was a guy that was playing with Ryan Braun, and a couple years later is coaching him as his manager in that same clubhouse. So Counsell, who arrived in Major League Baseball as a player in 1995 up until his conclusion as a player, retiring in 2011. Yeah, that's a long period of time of playing baseball with a batting stance all the way up here. I mean, I can't even do it because the denim jacket's too tight on me. It's too short now. But seriously, Counsell's stance has it's bigger than me by a long shot. It's ridiculous. But he had success. He was a defensive guru at times too. And what I've heard so much about Craig Counsell, why people have not only loved him from a player perspective, but from a media perspective, is just how he goes about himself, his savviness with his in-game decision-making, with his bullpen especially, and also just his ability to have the team rally around him, but his understanding of what it means to pushing forward, trying your best to win, and mean what a clubhouse that say is going to have their head hanging down. There are certain elements to a manager that someone who has never played in the game of baseball, especially at the major league level, just cannot understand. They cannot comprehend. This is why guys like Buck Showalter, for instance, and this is not a slight on Buck, but just showing differences, not having someone that had that same type of experience, recent experience, mind you, because Counsell's only in his early 50s. He's not far removed from the last time he played in baseball whatsoever, just over this past decade, and has been active in baseball this entire time, really over the past number of years now, as a manager. So when it comes to what's appealing for today's game, understanding today's players, Craig Counsell's already on a pedestal higher than a lot of other people that we see as potential candidates, or at least to the magnitude in which Counsell's really separated himself from the rest of the bunch. So Counsell, as we know, has interviewed with the Cleveland Guardians over this past week. He has recently interviewed with the Mets as of yesterday. He flew into New York. There wasn't exactly sure when he would be interviewing with them. It did officially happen this Thursday. It is done with. And then from there will be then secondary interviews. Actually, my mistake. That Counsell interview, I'm almost certain, was the second interview, because the first round of interviews were over the phone, in which Counsell had a long, thorough conversation with David Stearns prior to that interview. So the second round of interviews, according to SNY, is with Steve Cohen in attendance in there. And from the listed candidates that you see of Counsell, Carlos Mendoza, current bench role with the Yankees, of course, has had an extensive experience under Cashman in the Yankees organization and has been in baseball for a while overall. And again, not far removed either, a guy that has a lot of MLB experience right now as a younger coach as well. Andy Green, a former Met, is someone that isn't necessarily believed to be getting that second round of interviews with Cohen. However, things could be changing. Mark Kotsay, who recently was manager of the Oakland A's, has been manager for them since Bob Melvin was parted with, as Bob decided to go to San Diego, and now he just did that same thing with San Diego, but now in San Francisco with the Giants, which makes a lot of sense for him going back in the Bay Area, being a former Giant, all those things. But Kotsay, who I've heard great things of as really being the heir apparent to Bob Melvin there in Oakland. You look at Oakland's roster, you know what's going on there. I mean, a manager cannot fix that. You know, you're going to manage a team that you know is not going to make playoffs each year for the foreseeable future with the current state that they're in. So you really can't put much of any blame on Mark, in my humble opinion. And he's an interesting, candid guy that, again, has managerial experience over the past couple of years and long, extensive experience behind Bob Melvin during their time in Oakland as a pair. So he's a guy that could be getting a second interview. Counsell looks like he already has one, and Carlos Mendoza is that other name to watch that we're going to get into shortly. And of course, guys, as you're watching, please make sure and feel free to share your questions, your comments, your concerns. I'm going to get to plenty of your questions and comments, as many as I can, before the conclusion of the live show, after I kind of do my spiel and share with you all what is the latest on this front and what is going on with this team as a whole. You know about baseball, Mets have to hire you, WardyNYM, as Mets manager. I don't know about that one, Daniel. Love my Mets. You know, there's a reason why they're not considering me yet, at least for said role, but I appreciate the kind words no less. So the latest updates we know prior to that interview, Counsell has serious interest in not only pairing with the Mets, he has interest and plenty idea and interest to rekindle that relationship with David Stearns, a one that hasn't stopped, mind you. They've been in constant contact. It has not stopped since Stearns left the Brewers to go to the Mets, because there hasn't been much time in between that point from him being the Milwaukee organization to the Mets. So there's been a constant dialogue there, a constant understanding of each other. And David Stearns, Mets Pobo, wants one thing more than anything probably out of his manager, and that's someone that is collaborative and can work well with him consistently. It's almost like he's been doing that pretty well with a guy for the past 5+ years, right? Craig Counsell, hi, nice to meet you. How you doing? So I'm sure the phone call wasn't too difficult. And I'm sure that second interview wasn't either, assuming that that was the case, that recently happened. So Counsell, we see he's had that interest, and he also is open to the challenge and opportunity to be a manager in New York with the Mets, with the big spotlight. Now, whether he can handle that or not is a different discussion. That would be a wait and see, indicative on him, of course, one, being hired by the Mets because he decided to come here, and two, actually hopefully performing well. You know, those are two things that we don't know exactly if and when they're going to happen. But of course, us Mets fans are hopeful that we find out a decision on Counsell within the next week. And the belief is that we are going to find exactly that. But as we know, the Mets did the interview with him, and Counsell, reportedly, we've known this really since the start of the offseason for him, is that he wants to set the market for managers. Counsell, given his resume, yes, he doesn't have World Series experience behind him, but last time I checked, most managers in baseball don't know what it is to have World Series experience. And to go a little bit further, to have continued success the way that Counsell has, the way that universally across baseball he is deemed as one of the best and most understood managers in the game, someone that can really be collaborative and adaptive with the front office, the way that he has been in recent years with Stearns, and then most recently with Matt Arnold there in Milwaukee. You have to like the feel, and you have to like the interest there. And for him, you understand where he's coming from. Now, this is what leads into the big hubbubaloo, if you will, the controversy, and if you will, that has come out over the past day or so on social media. But before we get there, let's get to the fact that a couple other teams have shown interest, including the Houston Astros, but the Astros are in a more premature situation in addressing the managerial front than the Mets are, who already are deep in these talks and discussions. The Mets will have a manager in the next week or so. That is the current belief at this time. And he had that long phone call that we mentioned prior to the interview, that first interview, basically. So now let's get into the controversy, the CCC. What is today's CC, Wardy? It's Craig Counsell controversy. What is it? Well, if you've been following on Twitter over the past 24 to 48 hours, you have seen recent reports have indicated that should the Milwaukee Brewers match the highest offer that Craig Counsell is given from whatever team it may be, he will stay in Milwaukee. Now, this comes out of a beat writer from, yes, you guessed it, Milwaukee. So one, I'm not shocked to hear this from a Milwaukee beat reporter. And two, I'm not shocked by any of this. We knew this. If you have been following along with the Counsell situation, you knew this too. He's been wanting to set the market for managers, and more than anything, He's going to go where the money is, right? That's a huge factor in this. There is no denying that. So for people to automatically think, oh, how could this guy only want to come here with money being the driving factor? Hello, the Mets have how many players in their history as an organization that have done exactly that? Why is this any different? Why does that matter to you? Is really my question. Because it's common sense for someone that knows he's easily the most qualified manager currently in that free agent market to want to set the market. And what is setting the market? That is another good question you might have. Well, Bruce Bochy, who returned after a couple of years removed from baseball with the Giants to come to the Texas Rangers, signed a deal with an annual value of $4.5 million, including incentives. Now, Buck Showalter, when he signed with the Mets on that 3-year deal, was making around that range per year too. So these guys are around the highest paid managers in baseball. Yes, years ago, we saw Torrey get $8 million. That is not going to be the case. I don't believe it to be with Stearns. Not Stearns, that being in Counsell. So the question is how much are we looking at with Counsell? Are we looking at right around $5 million per year with incentives, right? Are we looking a little bit more than that? So there are question marks as to how much Counsell is exactly looking for, but we know that money, especially for a Steve Cohen-ran Mets that is putting all of his faith now in David Stearns, isn't going to give a flying you-know-what about exactly how much money that is, as long as that is still fairly reasonable at the end of the day with what the market's going to be, should it be reshaped with a Counsell hiring, which truly, in my opinion, still feels inevitable until proven otherwise. Now, Greg Counsell is also the same manager with the Milwaukee Brewers that denied a new contract offer sent to him mid-season, during the season with the Brewers, denied any further talks with the Brewers, said, we're done talking about this, we're not doing this, I'm focused on the season, to then being allowed for the first time in the past couple of years early access by Brewers front office to speak to teams prior to his contract's conclusion on Halloween. So if you pay attention to every single thing to this point, this would lead you to the obvious notion that, yes, of course, Counsell wants to try to reset the market for managers, with him leading the way in that regard. Very similar to Max Scherzer setting the market differently for pitchers in annual value and on shorter term contracts. Hence why JV got essentially the exact same thing he did. It's okay to want to set the market when you have had not only a reputability from recent years of success, but where you stick out like a sore thumb in the market too. This is not a managerial market currently where you have multiple managers that have had recent success at the MLB level that have expiring contracts. That just is not the case. That is why Counsell has been deemed by the guy for any team looking to hire a new manager for the most part this offseason. So now you look at, okay, yes, money's definitely a driver here. And yes, he may very well want to go back to Milwaukee if he's matched the highest offer. Why should we believe for even 1 second that a Steve Cohen-ran Mets that actually has interest in Counsell, if the Mets are fully committed to Counsell, why should you think for even a flipping second that they would allow the Brewers to even get close to matching an offer? This is the same Milwaukee Brewers team that penny pinches year to year. This is not to slight their fan base whatsoever, because they have very passionate fans, great fans there. But they know what it's like to deal with a penny pinching owner. And us Mets fans know that feeling far too well during the times with the Wilpons. So the point here is, this is a Brewers team that has not been willing or shown any willingness to actually provide the money when needed to keep guys. If they don't do it with their players, why should we expect them to do it with a manager and to help him reset the market? Yeah, I'm going to go on a limb and say that that is not going to happen. And if it does, then I will come out and, of course, apologize. But there's just so many reasons as to why you don't expect or anticipate that to happen. Steve Cohen, David Stearns, we know the interest is there. We know Counsell wants to come here. The only way Craig Counsell is not Mets manager in the next week or so when an official announcement happens is if Counsell does not want to be here. And in Counsell's shoes, let's talk briefly about this, shall we? And then I really want to get into your comments, questions, and concerns, right? For Counsell, think about being in his shoes for a second. He was a 2-time Milwaukee Brewer and spent his final 4 years in Milwaukee from 2007 to 2011. Had a one stint in 2004, then 2007 to 2011. Then, of course, stayed in the organization, became their manager pretty much right away, only after a couple of years. His whole family, everyone's from Wisconsin, everyone's from the Milwaukee area. He's known this, okay? So, yes, if, say, the Mets offer $5 million plus incentives, 4.5, $5 million, around there per year, and the Brewers somehow match, can you blame him for even 1 second to want to stay there if his priority is what is best for his family, but also what is best for his future financially and helping to reset the market, if he can get all those things while staying home, of course he's going to want to stay home. I would want to stay home if I'm in his shoes. Why would I want to go up and change all of that if I'm going to get the same pay? You know what I mean? Like, unless his priority is to truly see what can happen by getting out of his comfort zone and have a chance to have success in the big market with Stearns, you know, that's a different discussion. So I'm trying to just reiterate here, it's very normal for that to be the case with Counsell. Many players or managers to have that belief or have that interest. If I've been with a team for a while, I wouldn't mind staying here. If you just pay me what I feel I'm worth, then I'll stay. But that's been the whole build-up here. The Brewers haven't shown that willingness to pay what he's worth. So why should we believe now that that's going to be the case? Now, is there always that risk? Is there always that back-of-the-mind thought that Counsell could be using the Mets here for leverage? Absolutely. I mean, there are going to be teams every single year that try to use the Mets for leverage. That's the nature of the game. That's 100% going to happen. That's going to continue to happen. That is inevitable. But what is also inevitable is that Steve Cohen ran Mets that knows when he wants something, finances aren't really going to be the issue, at least not for the time being, and hopefully not for a long period of time. He's going to present Counsell with exactly the type of money he's probably looking for, and I'm sure this is something where the Brewers could look at and be like, you know, we can give you a little bit more, but we really can't match there. And again, this is not to act like I know everything. This is not to be cocky as a fan, as someone who went through, again, albeit not nearly as long as more you diehard Grizzle Mets fans, the Wilpons era. You understood what that penny pitching feeling was like, and you knew when the writing was on the wall. I feel as if we've seen a lot of that writing on the wall here with Counsell in Milwaukee, and until we see things change and be proven otherwise, there is nothing to really indicate to make you think that Counsell and the Mets aren't a really strong match and aren't the heavy favorites to land with each other. So as I reiterate once more all this info to you, my question to everyone watching live and on replay is, where do you stand when it comes to Craig Counsell? Are you one of those fans that really don't like the fact that a guy is prioritizing money more than anything, when in reality, that's the case with a vast majority of people in this sport? So I really want to know where your head is at as a fan, along with the other reported candidates that we see. Craig Counsell, Carlos Mendoza. Mendoza, for those that don't know, currently bench coach for the New York Yankees, has been in their organization for a minute, understands the New York market, and that's something that does give him an upper hand over over a Counsell and over some other options out there. But for me, Mendoza, it would be another one of those first-time managers. Yes, he has managerial experience at the minor league level, but still first time at the major league level. And there is no question in my mind. I want Craig Counsell far more than any other candidate. And this is not to slight Mark Kotsay either, but as someone who already has a rapport with Stearns, that being Counsell for a number of years, I just feel like for Counsell's ability to transition to a major market, the comfortability would be far greater with Stearns than it would be someone else, right? So I think that's just another sign that leads the Mets in the right direction there. But Mendoza, do not get it twisted. I will not hate the hire should it happen the Mets go down that route. Mendoza, who's 43, he's been in the Yankees organization going all the way back to 2009 and has been their bench boss. As we know, it would kind of be interesting if the Mets did find themselves in that position, how it was just 2 years ago, Mets former manager and Luis Rojas ended up going to the Bronx as the Yanks third base coach. That would be kind of a little flip-flop. It would be odd. But point here again is Carlos Mendoza is someone that does have the reputability, being in the New York market, understanding what it's like to handle not just Mets market, but Yanks market. And Yanks market, since he arrived, has not been good. He hasn't, their World Series success since 2009 hasn't been all that great now, has it? So he hasn't seen a whole lot of great during his tenure in the Yanks, but he has been with consistent competitive clubs and understanding that feel in a New York market where pressure is always on you, eyes are always on you like no other club in a lot of ways. You can understand that and give him credit for all those things. But for going back to managerial experience as a whole, there is Craig Counsell, then there's a gap. I shouldn't say there's a gap. There's Craig Counsell, there's Mark Kotsay, then there's a gap, then there's basically everyone else that's been reportedly connected to the Mets. Andy Green, who's been on the bench of recent for the Cubs, a former Met himself, also former San Diego Padres manager, has been in that mix, but I haven't heard anything overwhelming in his favor to this point. Mark Kotsay is another name that we just recently discussed that has been in that mix. I'm sure there has been other rumblings of names too, of guys being considered, but reportedly who has been interviewed or talked to, at least, it has been this final four at the current moment. So over the next couple days, days, I'm sure we may find out more names. The Mets want to make sure that they have their backup options in place, but do not get it twisted. The same way I'm sure it is for Cleveland and possibly some other clubs, as it is for the Mets. Craig Counsell's their guy. They certainly want Counsell. Counsell has a level of interest here. There's a lot of reasons to believe that this could be a very strong fit, but belief and those things becoming a reality are two separate things, and that is why this will be a continued wait and see per usual. But I do want to get to some of your comments now before we get deeper in the show. Again, thank you to everyone that has been chiming in. Please continue to smash that like and subscribe button. Help us get 100 plus likes in the live show if you haven't already. We're trying to get to 200 plus by the end of not just the live show, but just at any point for people watching on replay. Support is always appreciated. I'm not going to be too long-winded tonight too, so we will certainly be ending the show within the hour, but I do want to get to plenty of you guys watching live on replay, getting those comments, and just once more, very appreciative to have all you chiming in for the latest news and updates on the Craig Counsell managerial front with the Mets and the other reported candidates to this point. So I'm going to go up and go down a little bit, just see if there's any specific comments I missed that I feel should be addressed. But now let's get in this. Bear with me 1 second, everybody. People watching in replay, if you're wondering what I'm doing right now, if you can't pay attention or see, I shouldn't say pay attention, but if you don't physically see it on your phone or on the computer, I'm currently looking through the live chat, people that are watching the shows live. If you want your comments answered live, make sure you chime in the live shows. Again, weekly live shows every single week. There will be plenty of weeks with multiple live shows. We're going multiple live shows even in the same day when signings and breaking news happens, things of that nature. Like, we're always covering it to a T. So rest assured, if you enjoy consistent live coverage, if you enjoy consistent individual video content, we have top 5 video content rolling out really, really soon. Really excited to get the first top 5 hitter of the year out for you guys, along with plenty of other things. Make sure you're smashing those buttons and make sure you're just chiming in to the shows as they are happening. But love the Wardy offseason. I love you, John. Happy to have you in here, my friend. Let's see. Kevin, great member. Happy to have you in here as well. He's looking to rip Cohen off already. Pass. See, we have some passionate fans feeling different. Wally. I know we got people that want Wally as manager. They say that every single year, regardless of what's happening with Wally and his status. It's always going to happen. Vanilla Grilla, a good member. Thank you so much for chiming in. Honestly, I think Kate is a good candidate. Whoever it is, they got to get the right guy for sure. Absolutely. And look, no one's going to be perfect. No one's going to be exactly what you're hoping or looking for. But the point is you want to get the guy that on paper is the most qualified, and 2 can be the most collaborative and understanding with the front office. A new front office now. You know, the hope and goal here with David Stearns is that he's our effing guy for, you know, the next decade, 2 decades. Like, that's the hope, that's the dream here. But you need to start. This is step 1. And when you're really starting fresh again, and it feels like the Mets have done that almost every year since we started the channel under Cohen. A lot of turmoil has happened every single year for the most part with trying to figure out who's right, who's wrong, because guys weren't available. Now they're available. Now I can drop this guy to get this guy, whether that's an active player, whether that's someone for the manager or GM, whatever it may be. Point stands is this is a Mets team that has had a lot of changes in recent years, but now they're really trying to build this structure. They're trying to get a long-term structure built. They have David Stearns. They hope that he is the start of that, and hopefully whoever they hire as manager can help be that for their next 5, even I mean, if the Mets hire a Craig Counsell or whoever they may hire, and that manager goes on to manage the Mets for at least the next 5 years, then that is more than likely a very successful tenure, okay? Especially with how New York market is, and especially with Steve Cohen's adamancy about winning and having a sustainable winning in the organization, in the clubhouse, on the field, mentality-wise. You want to have this feel of not only being a champion, regardless on if you are one or not, but being that consistent contender year after year after year. Being the Dodgers, being the Braves, being an Astros, being, you know, a Rays, all these teams that, you know, no matter what, they just find a way every single year and they give you a run for your money. They are a pain in the neck, and they're going to have deep runs. They may have some short runs, but rest assured, they're still going to be back next year. That is where the Mets want to get at. Even if they do have a lack of playoff success at times, they want to be that team that knows for certain every year we're going to be there. There isn't one fan right now saying that they don't expect the Dodgers to be back in the playoffs next year, right? And I bet you could argue there may even be fans that could see more of the Diamondbacks not making the playoffs next year than the Dodgers. solely by the continued success the Dodgers have had year after year versus a Diamondbacks team who just had a miraculous run, but just squeezed into playoffs. So they still have proving to do next year on how they can really come together as a team that now has playoff experience versus a Dodgers team that knows what it takes, knows what to do during the regular season. That's the least of their problems for the most part. It's about actually getting into postseason. Then once you're in there, what are you doing? So just some things to think about, and how Steve Cohen and David Stearns, they're trying to build a sustainable structure of success for this Metropolitan Ball Club. And this is why, another factor as to why I'm appealed personally as a fan to Craig Counsell, because he really does come off as that person that could do that, knowing the rapport and strong connection, the relationship he currently has with Mets Pobo and David Stearns. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Carlos Beltran, no. As much as I like Beltran, and I do, it was early reported that the Mets would not be considering the names of Carlos Beltran, Eric Chavez, anyone internally for the managerial position. Now, speaking of not Beltran, but Chavez, Chavez is among the few names that has been linked to the Padres in their managerial search. So, while nothing is a sure guarantee, no one should be shocked if Eric Chavez's time in the Mets organization may have come to an end, because he's someone too that went from Mets hitting coach to moving up to bench boss this past year because he was hoping to be the heir apparent to Buck Showalter. He wants to manage in baseball. That's in part why he went to the Mets 2 off seasons ago, to be under Buck, to be not only working with him, but going from the Yanks to here, because he probably had an understanding that there is a shelf life with Buck, not only because of performance, but just because of age, that could lead him in better favor of potentially being a next manager versus, say, working behind Boone and Cashman and them still stagnant in this middle of mediocrity. You know, they're still stuck. That's a pair that's been together for a while, that doesn't know when it's a toxic relationship and when to break up, right? That's how I feel. Not saying they're toxic with each other, but them together is not leading to the success that the Yankees are hoping for in any way, shape, or form, and yet they continue to roll out those two as a pairing year after year after year. Now, us Mets fans, our hope with a David Stearns and, say, a Craig Counsell is that they would have a relationship or rapport similar to kind of like what you see already in the Bronx, which they do during their time in Milwaukee, but to actually have a more sustained success behind it as well. Hopefully getting at least one championship on their resume long-term over the next 5-10 years. Seriously, like, even if it's just one, that'll make my entire lifetime as someone who's never witnessed a championship for any of his favorite teams, especially the one that he covers for a living. So let me get to some more comments now. Hefner, okay, we got a guy who's not a Hefner guy. I don't dislike Hefner. I will say that there is some fair criticisms with him, and you have to think of how much does Hefner play a factor versus other people in the coaching staff. Hefner has been considered, Jeremy Hefner, Mets pitching coach, has been considered for coaching roles elsewhere, but he is waiting to make a decision on what the Mets will do with manager, and certainly what they want to do from there if they would like to keep him. Counsell wants some money. Let's go with Chavez. It will not happen, Mike. If the Mets wanted Eric Chavez, they would have considered him for the managerial position, which they are not. So just telling you how it is, regardless on if you like it or not. Like, the reality is that is not happening, and Counsell wants some money. But in his defense, who doesn't want the money? I think people are really blowing this out of proportion, as if Craig Counsell wants nothing to do with New York, and the only reason why they're even considered is because they can provide the most dollars. Yes, most dollars means probably a lot of interest. There's no denying that, but it also doesn't hurt having a guy in front office that you've known for how long now, that you've worked with yearly, day to day, how long now, and also having an owner that, unlike the owner that he had been working with his entire time as a manager, is willing to spend, has interest in improving the roster, and not having a penny pinch and have to bank on internal player development each year. While it's been great for the Brewers in their regular season success, they have had continued struggles with big games and big matchups with teams because they have not been able to get over that hump, in part because they're not willing to spend the dollars in the areas that they need to or want to most. This is where the Mets come into play. This is where not only Cohen comes into play, Stearns now, and how he's going to be willing to allocate that money and go about it. I'm going to continue to beat this until proven otherwise. Counsell is someone that makes oodles amount of sense for this Mets team, and is not this greedy SOB that just somehow fans are labeling out to be. Like, Was everyone calling Max Scherzer like a guy that they had no interest in right away because he came to the Mets because of their record-breaking deal? No. Justin Verlander, how many Mets fans were talking shit on him when he was first coming in? Not a lot, right? Why did these guys come to the Mets? I'm sorry to break it to you. It's more than just World Series aspirations. It's getting $40+ million a year for 2-3 years when you're basically at the age of 40. So again, for me, this is speaking as a fan, just my humble opinion. It's okay if you guys disagree or even hate my takes here. It would be no different than any other day. But just I don't know how you rationally look at this situation and have an ill will or just view this as a huge red flag. Yes, you could point to media adding pressure. Should Counsell come in and be the highest paid manager in MLB? That if, say, the Mets don't start off 2024 great, they're going to be on his ass like no tomorrow. But Counsell's also shown a great willingness in handling media, albeit much smaller scale, night and day difference from Milwaukee to New York. Point still stands. He's handled it well from what we've seen, and I'm pretty sure that should he arrive in Queens, he will be as best and mentally prepared for the challenge as possible. And I will say this too. While he doesn't have managerial experience playing in a big market, he does have a ridiculous amount of experience performing in various markets as a major league ball player from 1995 to 2011. We're talking plenty of markets. He was with a bunch of teams during those times. So there is something to be said about that as well. But that's kind of the final statement I'll make on the Counsell front, regardless if you're in favor or against. Let's see. This is what I mean. This is why we can't be doing that. All right. All right, Chalk. Chalk, you're a good supporter. And that's fine to have varying opinions, but don't be saying stuff like that. You know what you said. Don't say that. That's not cool. Let me go further in the comments now, guys. I do see some donations I'd like to address. Pembets with a $20. Always a great support. Thank you so much, Pembets. We're 30 likes away from 100, by the way. So continue to smash that like and subscribe button. Again, thank you all so much in advance. Pembets says the following: I can't blame Counsell if he wants to stay in Milwaukee. Kotsay could be a good hire based on some of the positive things I heard about him. Surprised Joe Espada's name is not a mix based on past interest. I'm wondering how much Espada is being finally heavily considered for the role in Houston. For Espada, I really hope he gets that role in Houston. He deserves that role in Houston. And if the Astros don't hire him as manager, not gonna lie, I'm really feeling for the guy. He's interviewed for like every managerial opening for the most part of the past 3 years and hasn't gotten one. And Espada is a really, really smart, like-minded guy who has had plenty of success with the Astros for the past number of years now. But I think for the Astros' sake, it may be in their best interest to stick internal with him. That's just my opinion, though, as someone who does like Espada quite a bit. Chuck, thank you so much for the donation. Hey, Wardy, what do you think about the Mets taking a chance on Bauer? He was not found guilty and pitched well in the last few seasons in Japan. He'll likely take a 1 or 2 year deal. No, Chuck, for a couple reasons. One, there's plenty of pitching that'll be available in this year's market, both coming out of the MLB and also from the MPB. That is sufficient enough for the Mets to go out, target, and hopefully land. Headlining that mix is Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And then you have Aaron Nola, Blake Snell, was Urias, but I don't think that guy's going to be pitching the bigs again, so on and so forth. And then you have Bauer, who, yes, I'm sure when he comes back to the States, I'm sure he will transition fine at the MLB level. But with everything that Bauer brings, just naturally with how his personality is and how he goes about himself, and with the Mets having already went through this with him once in Steve Cohen's first year and really embarrassing Cohen in a way that I'm sure kind of strung with him to start his tenure as owner, I do not foresee a world whatsoever where the Mets consider Bauer. And truthfully, don't blame them, nor do I care at all. I mean, the Mets not signing Trevor Bauer a couple years ago was one of the best things that could have ever happened to them. So I'll leave it at that. And that's nothing personal regarding to Bauer and how I feel about him or anything. That's just a reality. I've felt this way and I've stayed this for a while. Just not someone that I see the Mets considering, nor should they. Last thing the Mets need is more negative media for to see headlines in the Post right away and all those online articles. Like we don't need that. because they managed every single year to make something out of nothing. Same way ESPN couldn't help themselves on Twitter from emphasizing how both Jacob deGrom and Scherzer win a ring a year after being with the Mets and with like a Mr. Met sat in it. But we won't acknowledge the like 4 to 5 Yankees on that Rangers team, including Monty, which was one of the stupidest trades that they've done in their recent history, right? Like, we won't talk about those things. I get it too. DeGrom, Scherzer, bigger names. Point being is that we've seen the agenda with the media at times. They're so quick. No need for any potential distractions. That's for clicks. Bingo, bingo, bango. And don't get me wrong, it plays in the favor. You know, when things are going well, even when things are going wrong. As a content creator, I know I'm grateful that, you know, there will always be traction. Things will always do well because there's always that interest level. If either the Mets are winning because you want to see a positive reaction, or the Mets are losing, you want to see a negative reaction. If the Mets get a player, you want to see me be hyped about it and explain him. If the Mets lose out on a player, you want to see me explain why, maybe be heartbroken, you know, whatever it may be. John, thank you so much for a $2 haul. John says, I'd at least give Girardi an interview. No, respectfully, no, John. I think the Mets have done enough with Girardi by being like a heavy factor in why the Phillies fired him in 2022, with how the Mets literally whipped that team around. Respectfully disagree on Girardi. I think he's a has-been. I do. I just witnessing firsthand how he was going about his tenure with the Phillies to how Phillies have been since then, mind you, with an internal option. It wasn't even like they went externally for their guy. I'm okay. Let's see. I'd rather have Girardi over Counsell or Green. They're both losers. I mean, I don't know why you're calling Green a loser of recent with the Cubs. I mean, they had a nice year this past year. They just missed. I get it. But then Counsell, I mean, yeah, he was in Oakland, but like, it's not, you can't judge the man on that, in my opinion. Because he was in Oakland. Like, his hands were tied. He was also in Oakland for a good period of time under Melvin, when they were a very competitive team before they got rid of everyone over the past couple of years, and they were making playoffs. So yeah, I don't believe that notion either, that, oh my God, that those guys are losers. That's not true at all. And why should I believe that a washed has-been would be better than a Counsell who's just literally managed this year? Like, nothing personal, but they're like, Girardi hasn't had success at the MLB level in a number of years. It's almost like there's a reason for that. Not to say you can't do it again, but if we're weighing options, I'm cool without that. There was a point in time where I really wanted the Mets to consider Joe Girardi, but those times have passed. Chalk, the day you're positive is the day I know that something happened. Hi, Worry. What free agents are the Mets going for? Plenty of different free agents that they'll be going for, that we'll be finding out throughout the offseason. If Counsell doesn't sign, what about Joe Madden? No, that's another thing. Like, that's another one. I have a lack of interest there. You know, it's personally, Madden's a little different, considering, you know, the Angels are, it's where everything goes to die, it feels like. But having said that, he's just another one where, yes, he did win with the Cubs. You have to give him his flowers for that in 2016. But it's, you know, I could maybe get with Madden. I think I could get with Madden more than Girardi at this point, but it's still two people that I don't anticipate to be in this mix. And I truthfully. No, I agree with you, Jeff. Yeah, there's a reason why I'm not drooling over an Andy Green right now. How about Yogi? Yes, there you go. Guys, we're gonna be wrapping up the show sooner than later. But before I get out of here, I do want to get to some more of your comments. do also want to fill you guys in just a little bit about kind of what to expect going forward with the channel and things of that nature. So, as many of you know, because I'm sure the vast majority watching the live show now are more diehards on the channel, people that have probably been here for a bit. But if you're new, happy to have you here. Again, thank you so much for joining. Appreciate it. As you've seen, really since the downfall of the Mets season, there's been a lack of the consistency in content. That went fully in hand with just the Mets having the downward spiral of a year that they've had. No need for me to be repeating myself, having the same rant night after night after night, and then leading us into the offseason is when I told you guys that we would get more in a structured span of things, and that's exactly what we'll be doing. So as I mentioned already, live shows every single week, barring any changes because of something last minute happened. I wasn't able to be there. Regardless, weekly is what we're aiming for with live shows. At minimum, one live show a week, if not multiple. There will be plenty of weeks as we get into December as well, where we're doing live shows. One live show on a Monday, two on a Tuesday, one on a Wednesday. Maybe a two over a weekend span because there's just so much going on. And between individual video content, also having new shows that will be beginning on the channel very soon too, that go beyond just the Mets. I'm excited to share with you all. Really interested to see what you guys' interest level is going to be in that. Collaborative stuff going on with other YouTubers, other creators in this space, players as well, on top of us doing callers. Again, we will be taking live callers in future live shows. Not every live show, but we're going to be kind of picking and choosing as we go what live shows are warranted of doing live callers, and just hearing from you guys, hearing your input, having some of you guys even come on the channel as well to do those live calls will really be fun, as we did throughout the season, throughout this past off season and the past regular season. Like we do them every year. It's always a lot of fun. So rest assured, a lot of things are on the horizon for Mets coverage here on WardyNYM. I'm really excited to get into it all tonight. Pretty much just the start of it on us getting the structure back where you guys can anticipate content on a more frequent basis for the ensuing weeks going forward now throughout the offseason. Thank you, Dominic. Love you, brother. Hope you have a great rest of your evening. Sorry I'm late. What I miss? Good amount, Yoshima, because we will be wrapping things up soon. So I would highly implore you to go back to the start. Happy to have you in here, though, buddy. Hope you are doing well. Let's see. The closest for a Japanese manager is Dave Roberts. I don't know how we got on that topic. Okay. Let's see here. Were you had a panic attack like me? Yes, I did, and it absolutely sucked. Yep. Playoffs last year when the Mets won with DeGrom start. We'll never forget sitting in this chair, full on panic attack on the live show. Literally like collapsed on stream. Not even joking. Good memories. Lots changed since then, thankfully, and I have to give a lot of massive credit out to friends, family for helping with anxiety, myself just overcoming it mentally, and also truthfully my good friends I've had as a sponsor in BetterHelp, who are not actively sponsoring this video but need to give them their flowers as well, because they definitely helped me in times where it was needed. So shout out to all of them, seriously. Seth Lugo back any chance? Hard to believe, but hey, if the Mets actually consider him as a starter, then anything's possible. Couple more, and then we'll wrap things up here in a second. Yeah, guys, I'm just happy to be back more than anything. 10 likes away from 100, very close to 1,000 views. Appreciate you guys a lot. And what about international free agents? I'm going to read it out loud because it's hilarious. Richard says, what about international free agent? You assist his ass. That's good. That's good. That's hilarious. That's actually really good. Shout out to you, Richard. Yamamoto, Montgomery, and DH plays. Oh, Monty wouldn't be bad. He's been a freaking Monty leaving the Yanks was the best thing to happen to him. But at the same time, would he have that same success level back in the New York market? I mean, he had plenty of very solid years with Yanks, so it's not like he can't. But it would be interesting to see what that element would be like with the Mets versus being the Bronx with the Yanks. Jorge Soler for DH, definitely a name that we will be discussing, guys. So, without fully spoiling, because I don't want to share it, not only because of this, but I also don't want to have people steal certain things either. But as we currently stand, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4. We have between like 4 to 6 top 5 topic videos that we will be doing over the next couple of weeks in the off season now. I think you guys are going to be enjoying a lot. Very on par with what we've done in recent years. So stay tuned for them. Really, really excited to get into those videos, especially. Really, I've missed doing player breakdowns, and I've missed really kind of getting back in the grind of a lot going on with the Mets, aside from just following them on the day-to-day, which I always do. And also miss just kind of informing you guys on stuff, because I know that, you know, a lot of people in this space have been doing their own respective work on trying to fill you guys in, and they've all been doing a great job in their own rights. But, you know, I've prided myself on WardyNYM being this hub, especially in the off season, where you really can come to it and expect to find out everything that you missed or could have missed, where it's all right there for you as often as possible. And that will continue to be the case this off season, and more than anything, just beyond excited and humbled for new chapters starting. So just stay tuned, guys. Big stuff coming, and appreciate you all again for chiming into the live show. But that's going to do it. So thank you all so much for watching, listening, whether you're watching live or on a replay. I'll let you. That's funny, Mama Worm. That's good stuff. But if you watch live, thank you so much for smashing those buttons. If you watch on replay, let me know your biggest takeaway down below from tonight's live show, our first live show of the MLB offseason here on WardyNYM. What's your biggest takeaway? Are you in favor of Counsell? Do you think Counsell is going to come here? Do you think not? If not, could it be Mendoza? Could it be Counsell? Whoever it may be, whatever your thoughts are, drop them down below. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for consistent coverage. Stay tuned.